Welcome to Ultra Catalyst. I'm your host, Stephen Nosek. We'll be exploring the one decision people make to drive change in their lives. Join me each week to hear from a variety of guests about what they did, the techniques and strategies they used, and how they're now leading their best lives. Welcome back, folks. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. You're here at the Ultra Catalyst podcast. My name's Stephen. Let me tell you a little bit about today's show. We have a special guest, a friend of mine I met a few years ago back at multiple events, and I'm going to introduce him in just one second. Now, let's tell you a little bit about the Ultra Catalyst podcast. This is where we're going to explore that one decision, that moment in time where there is just that catalyst, that spark where someone said, I'm just not where I want to be at, or my life isn't what I want it to be at that moment in time. And they make that quick decision. And it's that one little spark that decision made that put them on a new path to change their life for the better. So that's one of the areas that we're going to focus on today. But step back just for a minute, lean in, and get ready to listen to the conversation we have planned for you today. Now, I have a special guest. His name is Justin Forehand. Let me tell you a little bit about him, and then we'll get right into our discussion today. So Justin, he is a father of 3 daughters, a dance dad. You know him. You've seen him out there cheering for all his family members because everybody is an athlete in his family. He's a 22-year Army vet, a retiree just recently, a real estate agent and investor, a freedom fighter. He has a love for his country, guns, and archery. And one thing we got in common, we're both fitness addicts. And we'll dive into that today. So, Justin, welcome to the Ultra Catalyst podcast. How are things today?
Things are going great. Thank you for having me.
Excellent, man. Excellent. Now, what I like to do, and we've talked about this, you probably heard some other episodes, I like to just get a little background of who you are and just tell the audience a little bit about yourself. Feel free to start wherever you want, right? I mean, you've had a huge career in the military. You got 3 daughters, real estate. We got a lot of topics to choose from. I'm going to let you dive into which one you want to share.
All right. So I guess we'll kind of start off where my success journey really started. And that was, I'm an Army brat. My dad was a sergeant major in the Army. My grandfather was a sergeant major in the Army. And I knew that I wanted to go to college, but I didn't really have a way to go. They didn't save money and all that, but I've always found a solution on how to do things. And so I joined the Army at 17 years old, and it ended up paying for my college. So if we're talking about catalyst, that was like the first one that really started my entire rest of my, up until this point of my life. So that was almost 23 years ago.
Wow. So you got a long lineage of military service in your family, right?
Yes.
That's huge. Now, you just knew based on that experience, exposure, just like you said, Army brat, that right out of high school, you're just like, okay, let's go do it. Let's go take care of it.
Right. And, I didn't really have a goal for that career because my goal for that was to pay for college, and whatever happened after I finished college is what, I had planned to do. And it ended up being a 22-year career. And so I kind of broke the family tradition. They were both enlisted. 10 years into my career, I was kind of lost in not knowing what I wanted to do. I couldn't get promoted just because of circumstances and things like that. Mm-hmm. And I went to officer candidate school and became an officer, which if you know anything about the military, enlisted and officers, they kind of joke at it, at each other and everything. But my dad was happy. He was like, whatever you need to do. And I made it to 04, a major, mm-hmm. a brigade staff officer, and finally made a decision. I was kind of forced to make a decision last year to retire. So 22 years in the Army. So It was a fun ride, but kind of glad it's over now so I can start something new.
No, definitely. And I got to commend you and thank you for your service. I mean, that's to put yourself out there and in harm's way and ready to go for battle. That's something else, right? It
Right.
doesn't happen as much in our country, right? I know when I was growing up, some of my relatives were in the military, but one side of my family, there's just here and there of people in the military, right? Where on like my mom's side, it was pretty much all of the men, or most of the men, I should say. So thank you for your service. That's definitely commendable, and we value all the support that you put out there over the years and beyond. So let's dive into this. Is I know you just got to major and you went and you retired, right? There was obviously some circumstances with the military, but you were already looking out because the economy was great. What got you into real estate?
Well, I was also, now let me go back from the Army. I was in the Army National Guard, so it was a part-time thing.
Mhm.
So I was also a DoD contractor, and I had been a DoD
Oh,
contractor for um, probably 12 years. And back in 2014, I lost my job just because contract stops,
yeah.
and I had to find something new. And so I found another job, and then it happened again. And then I found another job, and then a year after that, they cut my salary $35,000. Uh,
Ouch.
and so that was the spark for me to get into real estate. I was like, I've got to take control of my income. I've got to take control of, um, what I do, and be able to create, a better income and provide for my family. So, and that's what got me into real estate is uh, circumstances just kept happening, and I think it was for the best. So,
Well, definitely now. I mean, we could see the results, right? You just were stacking small win after small win after small win until you got to recently where now you're selling houses on a regular. You got clients. It's keeping you busy. Speaking from my own experience, I've been in and out of real estate for, I don't know, 10, 15 years. Grew up as a real estate kid. My mom was realtor for 30 plus years or something. So I got brought, I used to say dragged, but then I enjoyed it after a while, right? I got brought to every open house, sale, client meeting, signing. Let's just go look at model homes on the weekend. And you're like, I'd rather be out swimming with the kids or BMX biking. But this is what my mom had that connection. So I just kind of followed in her footsteps. But 2008 is really kind of what curved my enthusiasm, if you will, for real estate. It was just so hard, especially being on 100% commission,
right.
that to generate during that environment was, for me at least, being not having my mind all there, obvious for unsuspecting reasons. Um, uh, Real estate can be a tough environment sometimes. Now within real estate, you're also an investor too. And so you've picked up several different properties and stuff like that. What was that experience like? Like you just said, let's go deeper into the real estate game, and it was through real estate holdings.
Well, we kind of started with investing. We When we moved here, we kind of kept our old house where we lived in Fort Rucker, uh, and we've rented it out for 12 years now. And then we just kind of started doing that along the way. Recently, it's been tough. We bought a house, I think, 2 years ago, and we're buying down in the Fort Rucker area. And so the area we were looking at, we had some squatters and stuff, and they wouldn't stay at our house. And so we sold it, and we actually did better selling it than I think we would if we would have just held it and rented it out. So we're kind of right now we're kind of in a waiting pattern just to see what could happen.
Mhm.
But I think for our investing, we've kind of focused on my sales right now, and then I think we're going to try to make a shift into short term or something like that, short term rentals. For one, we like going on vacation and stuff. So
Yeah.
if we have a property we already own, that's even better.
Yeah, short-term rentals, Airbnb.
Right.
Just got to find those right cities, right, where there's attraction and there's a lot of how do you say foot traffic, right?
Right.
Got to
Gatlinburg.
have a reason to go there.
Yep. So
Now let's go back to the house that you just described selling. What was it like trying to manage squatters to get them out of your house? Like, did you have to go through any legal proceedings, or did you just like show up on the door and just keep having conversations, trying to influence them to to get out of the property? Because obviously they're not paying, they're just causing havoc.
yeah, well, we live 5 hours away from where we own that property. And so my brother-in-law lives there and he's pretty much our property manager.
Hmm.
And he was going over one day to do something. I think we were fixing the floor or something. We had a big hole in the floor. And he noticed that somebody was in and called the police and they got him out. And then he went back like 2 days later and that person and somebody else was also in the house. Uh, so yeah, I think they had broken the back window a couple of times and, just anything to try to get in the house. But yeah, we called the police every time that we found them in the house and they knew the police actually knew the people and, they were, always in trouble. So,
Yeah.
Once we were able to get them out, we were like, yeah, we're going to sell this thing and got an agent down there to list it. And we were done with it within a month.
Oh, perfect.
I think it was a cash buyer, so it was quick. But it's, I guess that's just part of the game when you're investing in areas that aren't that great, but, it's something you got to deal with.
Yeah, definitely. I can imagine that, right? And especially the difficulty in the area. If the authorities already have regular contact with those individuals, right? And it's like, hey, Bob, I'm already seeing you. I just saw you last week. Why are you here again, right? And then it's just what is that? A cat and mouse type game to kind of keep tabs on them to make sure that it just happens to be your property that they wanted to take habitat in for this time, right? And next week it's probably someone else's. So
Yeah, and the only reason we bought it is because it was right next to a hospital. So we thought we can get like a traveling nurse or somebody like that.
yeah.
But the neighborhood just on the edge creeped into our house. So,
Oh man.
uh, but
Well,
good experience, and we made some money buying it and selling it. So,
yeah. Well, at least you're able to cut the anchor on that one and then go do something else.
yep.
So let's talk a little bit more about real estate. Real estate. So I see the signs in the background. What's the market like now in your area?
Well, Huntsville is crazy. There's so much industry coming here. The buyers I mean, last year was crazy. We were getting offers 50,000 over list price and
Wow.
20 offers, and it was just crazy. So Huntsville has exploded. It is now the largest populated city in Alabama.
Hmm.
Which when I moved here 11 years ago, it was like number 4 or 5. And I think there's 214,000 that live here, which is still a relatively small city,
Yeah.
like Chicago and New York and stuff. But for Alabama, it's a large city, and you got FBI headquarters moving here. We've had Facebook, Amazon, Space Command from Fort Collins, Colorado, is moving here next year.
Hmm.
So we're going to have a huge influx of people coming in. So the buyer market here, I think last year we had 500 houses on the market. And
Hmm.
so that's why you had the crazy
Yeah.
multiple offers and way over list price offers. And it's kind of slowed down a little bit, but we're starting to see more multiple offers starting, I guess in January when people started looking again after the holidays.
Yeah.
So it's a good time to be a real estate agent here in Huntsville.
It sounds like that, especially with that size of population and the projections for it to grow. Are the slightly higher interest rates from last year, are those impacting some of the buyers coming into the market today?
I think it's kind of made them a little cautious, but when you're moving here for a job, you've got to find a place to live. So I'm seeing people maybe rent a year before they buy more than they were in the years prior, but I don't think it's slowed down that much in this market. I'm a real good friend with a mortgage broker, and she was saying that last month they saw more applications than they have in a long time. So I think it's picking back up.
Oh, that's good. Are rents in the area also going up as well? Because
Yes,
you have people holding their houses for longer, seeing the influx of
right.
money from out of state or out of region.
Yeah, people aren't selling right now as much as they used to. I mean, last year it was crazy, and now I think there's 1,400 properties on the market for Madison County, which is not a lot. So I think the rental market is doing well here, and they're able to charge a premium. So I guess both sales and rentals are doing really well when you look at the numbers. So
Well, that's good. I don't know if I'm going to be moving there just yet. We just moved to Texas at the beginning of last year, but this area that I live in the Woodlands, Conroe area, it's also exploding. There's new developments. There's a lot of people coming in, like from my previous state, California, and all over the place. I mean, it's not just limited to there, but yeah, traffic's gotten a lot worse.
oh yeah, yeah. My daughter's starting to drive. She's gonna get her permit in about 2 months, and we're terrified just because we grew up in a small town where there was
Mhm.
barely anybody, open roads, and here to get from our house to anywhere, you got to go on the interstate. So, and the interstate, it has pretty much been Atlanta and DC. I mean, there's so many people driving crazy. There's accidents every day, and I'm
Wow.
kind of worried about that.
Well, I can only imagine, especially when you get that sweet 16 and you're getting your first car and you're getting ready to drive around and then eventually as a parent, you have to kind of like take your hands off the wheel and let them guide.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Let's move on. Let's talk about fitness. So I
Okay.
know in the past you've been a runner. You did a lot of running here and there. And then now I see you post just about every day, every other day, different pictures from your home gym.
Right.
What are you working towards right now in terms of fitness? Are you going after any events or goals or anything like that, or just to get healthy?
Um, I think I know I just turned 40 last year, so my goal is just to get stronger and stay
Mhm.
fit. I know so many people that once they turn 40, it's all downhill, and it's because they don't work hard at getting stronger. And one thing that I've really worked on is trying to PR, and
Mhm.
instead of PRing in races, I'm PRing in lifts now. So yeah, I would say I'm a retired ultra runner now because I've
Okay.
gained about 30 pounds, and it's a lot harder than it used to be. But it's 30 pounds of muscle compared to what I used to have. But I did, I guess, 8 marathons and 350Ks and a couple stage races, and that was
Yeah.
fun while I was doing it. But it kind of hurt my body because I was only running, I wasn't lifting and wasn't
Mhm.
getting stronger. And uh, I guess one day I decided I don't want to do that anymore. But yeah, it's an addiction for me. Every day um I've got to do some form of movement.
Mhm.
And my wife will get mad at me. She's trying to talk to me or something, and I'm like, hold on, I've got that feeling. I gotta, I've got to do something. And then she'll be mad for a little bit, but then she realizes that it's something that I need to do to stay mentally stable
Yeah.
and moving forward. So
Yeah. I find I'm doing that a lot now as well. And so as you've seen on some of my videos and our earlier conversations, right? I didn't restart running or doing triathlons until about 4 years ago. Before then, I was beer drinker, overweight. I might do like a weekend warrior type run with some buddies. Wasn't running or anything like that. And then I just got into it. Me and my brother just started running race after race every month, and then moved on to triathlons. And then now the quest is ultras, right? So anything greater than a 26.2 for anyone in the audience, right? And what I found in the last, what is it, 9, 10 weeks, I've been hitting the gym to actually build muscle, right? If I look back at my last 2 years of ultra running, whatever the distance, I had almost no muscle, right? It's like literally just mental at that point. And I was like, no wonder why I'm getting so tired and beat up and my body's sore. I'm twisting my ankle. I'm getting injured every other run. It's like, I really got to start thinking about these things because I just turned 46, right? So over 40, just like yourself. And if you're not lifting weights, these things get a lot harder, especially with the recovery. Now, do you have any PRs that you want to share? Bench, squat, deadlifts, anything like that?
Uh, Not really. I only have 260 pounds of plates, so it's not anything too heavy yet. But I guess just from not lifting in years, you get back to that 225 and get, a couple reps in, you're like, hey, I still got it. But uh, yeah, I have it all written down somewhere. I don't, but yeah.
Yeah.
Going back to what you were saying about that, I think what caused me to kind of stop running, I did what's called the Huntsville Slam here in Huntsville, and it's 350Ks in a marathon in a 2-month span.
Okay.
But one of the 50Ks you had to either run a marathon in a certain time or do another long distance race prior, and I had never done it before, and my I guess my marathons were too slow, so I had to run a marathon to qualify for Mountain Mist. And I did that the month before the slam started. So I ran 2 marathons and 350Ks in about a 2.5-month span. And
Man.
I did that. I made it through. I finished. And then there was a race that just ran it for the last time, I think last week, and called Tick Ridge. It was a 25K. It was in the hills of Tennessee. And it destroyed me. I could barely walk for probably 2 or 3 weeks after that, just because the beating that I took from the slam and then that 25K, I just knew after that it was time to move on and do something to build my body instead of tear it apart. So
that is quite some mileage in a two-month span, right? So 50K for everybody, 31 miles roughly, right? So literally you had to run, I don't know if I could add, right? That's about 130 miles collectively or something like that, right? Maybe a little bit more.
Not counting any training in between.
Yeah, not counting training. That's a lot for 2 months, right? I mean, even myself training for like 50 milers, 100 milers in 1 or 2 months, I don't think I ran that much, right? For some of my training. Now, I did interview a guy, Justin Hazari. You probably seen him as well. He just ran 50 marathons in about 50 weeks. So 1 per week. His goal was 52 for last year. And I just don't know how you could run that much every single week, but do it consecutively, right? I might be able to run 5 miles on day 1, maybe 2 miles the next day. But to run close to 130, 140 miles in 2 months, that's a lot, especially for a timed race.
Right. Yeah, I can't imagine that. 50 and 50. Wow. It's like the Iron Cowboy,
Yeah. Yeah, James Lawrence, man. Yeah, that's just it's something else, right? It's the Dave Goggins, the Rich Rolls, the Jesse Itzlers, like all these other folks that are just into that ultra lifestyle. It's quite interesting to be a part of, right? Because you get to meet a lot of interesting people, but just to see what you could do with your body and then your mind to be able to survive. I mean, you're doing 350Ks pretty much back to back. That tears the crap out of your body.
Right. And they weren't fairly easy 50Ks either. So yeah, it did tear me apart pretty bad.
Oh man, I did sign up for Pinhoti, and I know that's kind of in your neck of the woods. I think 2-3 hours away from you or something like that.
Right.
And this year I had some other things come up. I wasn't able to go. I'll probably sign up this coming year. But I hear that's a beautiful area to go out and run in.
Yeah.
But I'm
Southern part
looking
of the
forward to it.
Yeah. It's a good race. I've got a lot of friends that have done it. I read the Cam Hanes book and was like, man, I want to get back into this ultra running just because, it inspired me to, and I was like, I want to do the 100. And then I started thinking, no, I'm gonna hold off for a little bit, see how my body's doing. I don't know that I'm gonna run it this year, but maybe it's something I'd plan to do in the year, a couple of years from now.
Yeah, I found one of the key things for any races, and you already know this, but for like our audiences,
Right.
if you have that goal in mind, you just sign up for the race, you pay your dues, and then you figure out how you're going to train for it. And just remember, you have to show up and go give it your best, even if you're not fully trained, right? Because a lot of people, they'll say, I'm going to do a marathon, right? The pinnacle of running, until you get farther than that. Most people will never go out and do it, right? Because they didn't sign up, right? It's like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow, right? The same old thing. But man, just still blown away with your distance in 2 months. That's pretty gnarly, dude.
Yeah.
Let's
I don't know
move
that
on.
I'll do it again.
Yeah. Well, you know what? If I know you and myself, I bet if I make a trip out there, we go for a run for a little bit. I don't know
Yeah.
if we'll do a 50K, but we'll do some distance, man.
Yeah, I'll take you on the mountain. We'll get some mileage up there.
Yeah, definitely, man. Definitely here in Houston, Conroe, there's not any hills around. They're 3-4 hours away. So I do most of my running on an incline treadmill, or it's all flat. I just training for the heat when it comes. So
Yep.
let's switch gears, man. Let's talk about your mission, man. So you've come a long way. You've done a lot of different professions. You got a blossoming family. They're getting older. They're dance right now at a competition. Let's talk about your mission, man. What are you really geared to do going forward, right? I know you've been working in several areas that we haven't even talked about yet.
It's really all about the kids. It's to provide opportunities for them and teach them how to grasp those opportunities and do something with it, and to allow them to grow. I mean, we homeschool them.
Okay.
We try to give them the knowledge that they'll actually need in life, and because we all weren't taught finances and
Mhm.
hard work and things like that, because like Andy Frisello always talks about, they try to talk success down. So
Mhm.
we made the decision 8 years ago. It was way before COVID, all these
Yep.
temporary homeschoolers, to give our kids the best opportunity to learn what's actually needed to be successful in life. And I think where we're at in this stage right now with a 14, 13, and 11-year-old, we've seen the hard work they put in, and we're optimistic for what they are going to do in the future. So we're already starting to do things like take my oldest to colleges. Like next month, we're going to take them to Ole Miss for a dance clinic, and she's excited about that. So we're just very optimistic of where they could go with what we've given them. And they're talking about opening dance studios and doing all kinds of good stuff that I kind of, wow, you're thinking about that at 14 years old. So it's that's pretty much our mission, is to provide opportunities for them. So yeah,
That's awesome. That's fantastic. I'm going to drill into this topic because we got something highly relatable. I don't even think you and me have talked about it before, but it sounds awesome that the learned behaviors that they have and the entrepreneurship, right? They see you and your wife doing these different activities, and they understand the value of that, and you're instituting that level of excellence in what they do. And I know it shows based on just what their visions are of the future, how they're into dance, how they're treating competitions. And that's phenomenal. Let me ask you this question. Before you guys made that decision for homeschooling, Did you have them in like a public or a private school? And was your wife also working at the time?
Um, we had, so my oldest went through 2 years of school,
Mhm.
and my middle child did 1 year. My youngest has never been in a public school. But my wife was running a business. She started a business in 2014, and she watches dogs in her house.
Mhm.
Um, and so they all help with that business. So yeah, only 2 years of public school for my oldest. And we saw behavior changes. We saw how overwhelmed with busy work
Mhm.
that they were having to do. Like they had no time for extracurricular activities or being a kid or anything like that after coming home from school all day and then having to do 3 or 4 hours of homework as a first grader. And I was like,
Yeah.
this is nuts. And we made a decision. We went to my middle daughter's class for, it was her birthday, and we brought cupcakes
Yeah.
for her class. And that teacher had absolutely no control over the class. Kids were running everywhere, hitting other kids, and we looked at each other and said, this is it. This is,
Mhm.
we're the next, I think a couple weeks later, we went and took them out of public school. And it's not very hard to do here in Alabama, to homeschool. You don't
Mhm.
have to have a cover school or anything like that. So, um, yeah, we made a decision 8 years ago and been doing it ever since.
That's fantastic. And I definitely have to commend you and your wife, right? Because homeschooling changes the dynamic, especially if you're used to having your kids go to a public school, right? I look back at my younger day. My brothers, they went to some private schools and then into public school. I did public school as well. But just like you and your wife, my wife homeschools our kids, right? They're 9 and 7. My son, who's the oldest, he's on the autism spectrum. And so we found out when he was about 2.5, almost 3. And there was a local school from about 5 miles away. And we brought him there. And I think for about a third, maybe a half of the school year, right, he excelled. He was with a small group of kids. I think there was like 6 or 7. There was 2 teachers in there, and it was more hands-on, right? He needed that at that time. But he just quickly excelled. And what they did is they just, instead of keeping him in the class at that same level, they bumped him up to other higher grade levels for special needs children, right? And the unfortunate thing was, is when they did that, it went by age. It didn't go by what their mental capacity was or their intelligence at the time, right? And so he started to get picked on by other kids that also had different types of um, behavioral issues, right? And my wife saw it, and then I saw it, and then after a while, he was just like, and he's only like 3.5. He's like, I don't want to go back there, right? Like he'd fight us because the experience there. And my wife said, okay, we'll homeschool him. And so we did the same thing. We said, enough is enough. We could do it better. And my wife is full-time mom, homeschool, housewife, and then our daughter, who's a few years before, she's never been in public school at all. And so now, just like what you do, and I'll dive a little deeper in here, is every time there's a weekend or a family outing, we make it a learning experience, right? We're pointing out the situations. How do you do counting of money? They get their own money, they got to count it out, they got to learn, they got to see what the value is. We spend a lot of times in discovery museums, zoos, parks, outdoors, like all these different things that they wouldn't be getting if they went to the traditional public school right now, right? I think when I was in California, most kids stopped going out to recess, or it was cut short, right? There's no PE, no gym, no car mechanics, none of this other stuff like when we were kids. So, but man, I commend both of you, because it is a different way about raising your kids, right? Especially what you said, right? Not the short-term COVID caused homeschooling, which a lot of parents had to do. Some stopped doing it out of necessity, right? For obvious reasons, right?
Right.
But man, it is something different. And even for me, I had to switch gears, right? I'm a product of the public schools growing up, and and then did college myself. But now to come home going, oh, you know what? I have to do my part to help raise the kids and school them too, right? Not just instill excellence. It took me a little while to kind of shift my mind to adopt like this is the way, right? Like it's something else, you know.
Right.
Did you guys have any challenges like that initially?
Um, it was tough because we were trying to find a good way to help us teach them.
Hmm.
We went through so many different curriculums, and it took us about 3 years, but once we found that, it's been smooth sailing ever since. But it did take us a while to get used to. My sister also homeschools all three of her kids, so my wife and her were able to take their kids on these trips and different things to teach using that form of teaching. But so we did have help with family members in the
Mhm.
beginning, and then we met somebody we're still very close friends with. They also homeschool their kids, so we formed a little community. We also started going to a co-op, and so we
Mhm.
found ways to really, I guess, smooth over the transition of moving from public to homeschooling. And but yeah, I guess the first year was pretty rough trying to figure things out. And we tried book work and they didn't like it, so now they do everything on computer.
Yeah.
They have video. They have videos where they have these they're really, I guess, really good teachers.
Mhm.
And so they really like it, and it works well with how we do things. We also complement that with, like, when I'm picking them up from dance and bringing them home, I'll kind of quiz them with investing questions, and I call it drive time schooling. You know, Dad, it's 8 o'clock at night. Well, learning doesn't stop. You got to keep on going. Uh,
Yeah. There are no days off, right?
yeah, yeah, and that's another good thing about homeschool is we do it. We try to, if they're running behind, they do it on the weekends, because in real
Yeah.
life you can't take off if you're behind doing stuff. So it's
Yeah.
it's been good to be able to mimic what life will be after they're out into the real world. Um, that's just, I don't know, that's one of the benefits that we've found so far of doing it.
Yeah, I would agree. I'd seen the same thing after that little short transition period was is to be able to make everything about an experience, right? Like the world does not work the way you think it may work. And based on what you're shown in some schools, some of the things aren't teaching you how to quote unquote thrive, right? They're just teaching you to survive within the mechanics of quote unquote the matrix, if you will. But I mean, it is interesting to see that more and more people have gone the route of homeschooling, right? Which it was very popular 60s, 70s, right? Based on the times. What advice would you give anybody that's looking to get into homeschool or even considering now? What are some of the things that you'd recommend that they check into or be open to with that kind of transition?
Um, they'll just have to know it's going to be tough to begin with. You got to find a good support system, good curriculum, or if you're like unschooling, you just got to stay busy, stay active. Kids want to be creative. They want to be active. So another thing is to stay on a routine.
Mhm.
Kids they love routine. And if you aren't consistent with it, they get off. And we find that when we're not consistent with, making them do their schoolwork, that they may go a week or two without doing anything. And that's, we allow that sometimes just because they might need a small break,
Yeah.
but it's just finding that support structure, finding a good curriculum. I think we use Acellus is who we use, and just try to have as much fun, because they're only kids once. So
Yeah.
we try to, instead of birthday presents and stuff, now we do experiences. We take
Yeah.
them to Disney, and we do all these things, but we we try to incorporate some type of learning in everywhere we go. And I think the kids have enjoyed it. And what's actually turned out to be kind of funny is now my oldest, definitely my oldest, she's known at many different schools. So to me, she's like one of the most popular kids in Huntsville. Like she just got another boyfriend, I guess Tuesday. Asked her to be her girlfriend on Valentine's Day. And
Sweet.
there was kids at other schools talking about them starting to date or whatever. And I'm like, how many people knows this kid? She's a homeschooler. She's not supposed to know anybody.
Yeah.
But what happens is she's at dance with kids from all different schools, and she becomes friends with their friends. And she's like super social, way more than I am. She talks to way more people than I do. We're always like, who are you talking to? But I got off track, but
no, it's all right. It's all right.
But yeah, it's been, going back to your question, is just like I said, find a community. To me, that's the biggest thing, is finding a community that's going through the same thing you're going through. Find a co-op, or if you have any family members, try to keep in touch with them if they're doing the same thing. So
no, that's awesome advice for anybody that's looking to start homeschooling their kids or make the transition, unschooling from the public school or private school, right? I mean, all of those points that resonates with me, and those are great starting points. It's interesting you mentioned your tail end there about the socialization of kids that are homeschool, right? So when we first started, a lot of comments that were made, or we'll say flack from other individuals that we know, relatives and not, was, but they're not going to socialize. They're going to have absolutely no friends. They're not going to get exposure to hanging out on the playground or whatever the case is, right? And we actually kind of laughed at that. And we're like, well, they're involved in all these different groups. We go on excursions and experiences. They're talking. We're teaching them how to do things in grocery stores and everywhere else. It's not like they're sitting in a box, isolated,
right,
away from everybody else, right? That's not it, right? And they still could go outside and play with all the neighborhood kids that are quote unquote playing outside. They just attend their studies at a different time in a different location, right?
Right. Yeah, and if a kid's not socialized, that's homeschool. That's on the parent, in my opinion. We went out of our way to make sure they had other kids to be around. And luckily we found dance about the same time. Actually, no, they've only been doing it 6 years. So I guess 2 years into homeschooling, but luckily we found dance, and the kids there are amazing kids. They come from great families, and they've blossomed with the people there. And it's been fun to watch them do this. So we're very happy with making that decision. It was scary when we did it, but 8 years later, we're like, we made the right decision doing that. So
yeah, you've changed the course of your family tree just doing it, right? They're getting a different experience based, separate from where you came from or your wife came from, right? Different environment altogether. And it sounds like those decisions are starting to pay dividends. So that's awesome.
Yep.
Well,
Absolutely.
man, we're coming up to the end of it. I know we got to get going here in a little bit, but what are two things that you'd want to leave with our audience today that were from those moments of time where you had those catalysts where you just said, you know what, I'm not having it right now. Life could be better. What are two things that you did that just helped make you take that decision and go down that new path?
So I think I mentioned a couple of them. It's always going to be scary, because usually the things that make you change are scary. I lost my job, or I joined the Army. I didn't know that I was going to deploy right after getting married twice. So, the first 4 years of our 3 years of our marriage, I was gone. But but you just can't quit. You got to keep going. You got to stay consistent. You got to stack small wins, like you said earlier, and just keep moving forward. And, if something doesn't work, try something else. That's one thing that I've always done, is try something else.
Mhm.
And so, always trying to learn. And I guess the second thing is, always keep learning. I guess I started my self-development journey back in 2014 when I lost my job.
Mhm.
I started with Michael Hyatt, and then I found Gary Vee, and then I found Grant Cardone, and then Andy Frisell and Ed Mylett, and the rest is history. So,
Yeah.
uh, I guess 2 points would be never quit, and then always keep learning. That's just what I've always done to keep moving forward. So, my wife told me the other day that you just never quit, and I was like, yeah, that's correct. So I guess that's two things I would say.
Those are spot on, brother. That resonates with me, and I think the same thing, right? Is every day is a new opportunity for you to, like you said, try something new.
Yeah.
And if it's not working, pivot and just keep learning, right? We got to be lifelong learners, and you're already instilling that in your children, which is making a huge difference. And you're already stacking wins in Huntsville and starting to conquer the real estate area, which is huge, man.
Right.
I just saw you came in the top 50 agents in the area, which that's fantastic. I'm standing right behind you, clapping 100% of the time and more. You're going to reach the top of that list very soon. So keep it up.
There's 18,000 agents in Alabama, and was named number 43. So it's I think that's pretty good.
You know what? That's not too shabby, right? That's not too shabby. No, that's fantastic, brother. That means you're dominating the market, and we just got to get your name out there a little bit more and get you more clients. Where can people find you? How are they going to be able to connect with you?
I spend a lot of time on Instagram.
Mhm.
At Justin Forehand is my username. That's where you pretty much can find me. I'm on Facebook too, but I usually communicate more on Instagram than anywhere else. And
Fantastic.
I also started a YouTube channel this year. That was one thing. One of my goals
Okay.
was to do over 100 videos this year, and I'm at Justin Forehand there. I think I'm at stop counting. I think I'm at like 14 now, so got a ways to go. But
Well, you know what?
years young.
That's a good project to have, man. I'm gonna go check them out, man. I'm gonna become a subscriber on your channel. You do the same, and everybody listening here. It's been a great conversation with Justin Forehand. We covered all kinds of topics from homeschooling, army life, fitness, real estate. This is the place to be. Thanks for tuning in today. Go out, check him out on Facebook, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. He's got some new videos coming out. Once again, we appreciate you listening to the Ultra Catalyst podcast. Hit like, subscribe, send us a DM. Either one of us are happy to help you. We also got a new YouTube channel out there for this video. Justin, my man, thanks for being here. Appreciate you, brother.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Anytime, brother. We'll be in touch very soon. Thanks, everybody. We'll catch you later.